Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always excited to dig into some history.
Well, today we're going all the way back to 1692.
Oh.
Yeah,
Salem
Salem,
Trial.
the Salem witch trials. It's Salem Village, actually.
Okay.
Present-day Danvers, Massachusetts.
Interesting.
And, we're talking political turmoil. We're talking religious fervor. And a community that's already, kind of on edge.
Oh, yeah. A recipe for disaster, it sounds like.
Yeah, you could say that. So we've got court records, personal accounts, even some scholarly analyses to sort of guide us through this.
Sounds pretty comprehensive.
Yeah. So I guess the big question is, are you ready to try to understand not just what happened, but why?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the juicy part, right? Getting into the motivations and the context, that's what makes history come alive.
Exactly. So let's set the scene.
Okay.
We're in this small village, present-day Danvers, near Salem town.
Got it.
And even before any of this witch hunt stuff starts, they weren't exactly like best buds,
Oh, really? So some pre-existing tension.
Yeah, there were land disputes, feuds between families, tons of religious disagreements.
Right. Because this is Puritan New England, right?
Exactly.
So those religious disagreements are probably pretty intense.
Yeah, they saw the devil like everywhere.
Right. Always lurking,
Yeah.
tempting people.
Yeah, ready to corrupt you.
So everyone's already a little paranoid and suspicious.
Right.
Then you throw in this whole witchcraft hysteria.
So you've got this community, right? They're already on edge.
Right.
And they're just like primed for something to set them off.
It's like a tinderbox, just waiting for a spark.
And then that spark, it comes in February of 1692.
Okay, here we go.
A group of young girls.
Oh, no.
They start having, like, fits?
Fits? Like what kind of fits?
Screaming, contorting their bodies,
Oh,
crawling under furniture. It was really freaky.
I bet. No wonder people were scared. Can you imagine witnessing that with no medical explanation?
No, yeah.
You probably start thinking about supernatural causes, too.
Right. And in a community that already believes in the devil.
Yeah, it's a perfect storm.
So who are they going to blame?
That's what I'm thinking. Who becomes the scapegoat?
Right. And of course, it's the people who are already kind of on the fringes.
Makes sense.
Well,
Outsiders.
Yeah. So the first three women accused.
Okay, give me the names.
Sarah Good.
Sarah Good.
She was destitute, known for begging.
So already viewed as suspicious, probably.
Then you've got Sarah Osborne.
Another Sarah.
Yeah.
All right. What about her?
She rarely went to church.
Not a good look in Puritan Salem.
And she was involved in a property dispute.
So some bad blood there, potentially.
Right. And then there's Tituba.
Tituba. Okay, that name's familiar.
She was an enslaved woman from the West Indies.
Right, and she probably had some, folk traditions or beliefs that the Puritans wouldn't have liked.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're already vulnerable, already outsiders, easy targets.
Yeah, perfect scapegoats.
Tragic, really. But what kind of evidence did they actually have against these women? Like, how do you prove someone's a witch?
Right. How do you prove that?
Yeah, it's not like they had, DNA testing or anything.
Well, that's where it gets,
Uh-oh. This is where it gets spooky.
it gets weird. They use something called spectral evidence.
Spectral evidence. What in the world is that?
So, the accusers, they claimed they could see the spirits of the accused.
Like ghosts?
Yeah, like ghosts. Or shapes of them.
So if someone said they saw a ghostly version of you doing something bad,
That was enough to put you in jail.
that's terrifying.
Yeah, pretty unsettling.
It sounds ridiculous to us now, but back then,
It's a different world.
they really believed in this stuff. It was deeply ingrained in their worldview.
Right.
And you have to remember, this wasn't just about individual accusations. It was about an entire community in the grip of fear.
Right.
They needed someone to blame.
And unfortunately, it didn't stop with those first three women.
Oh, no, it gets worse.
Yeah. Eventually, over 200 people were accused.
200, wow. So this thing just blew up.
It spiraled out of control. Some were even very respected members of the community, like
Who?
Rebecca Nurse.
Rebecca Nurse?
Yeah. And Martha Corey.
Wow. So it wasn't just the outcasts anymore.
Yeah.
This was getting serious. And what about the court? How did they handle all this?
Well, things got so chaotic that they had to create a special court.
A special court
Yeah.
just for witchcraft cases.
Just for the witch trials, yeah.
I can only imagine how overwhelmed they must have been.
Yeah, it was intense. And without, any real due process, innocent people, they were being condemned based on, nothing.
It's frightening how easily a justice system can break down
Yeah.
just because of fear and pressure.
And then there's the case of Giles Corey.
Giles Corey. Yeah, that's a name I've heard before.
He refused to plead guilty or not guilty.
He wouldn't plead. Wow. What happened to him?
They pressed him to death under heavy stones.
Oh, my God. They crushed him.
Yeah.
Just for refusing to plead.
It's just brutal.
It's a chilling reminder that the law is only as good as the people who uphold it.
Exactly.
So back to this spectral evidence thing.
Yeah.
How did something so flimsy become the basis for condemning people?
That's a good question.
It's bizarre.
Well, at the time, there was this huge debate.
A debate about what?
About spectral evidence. Like, could it be used in court or not?
Right. Because it's not exactly reliable, is it?
No. And even some of the ministers were arguing about it.
Really? Like who?
Cotton Mather, for one.
Cotton Mather. Big name. He was a huge supporter of the trials, wasn't he?
Yeah. Well, he actually started out thinking spectral evidence was okay, but
then he changed his mind.
he kind of backtracked. He realized it could be abused too easily.
Yeah, imagine the potential for false accusations.
Exactly.
So did anyone try to push back against this whole spectral evidence thing?
Well, a group of ministers, they sent a letter to the court.
A letter. What did it say?
They were urging caution about using spectral evidence.
Trying to inject some reason into the situation.
Right. But there was this one line in the letter.
One line.
It was supposed to, leave room for God's intervention.
Okay.
But the court actually used that line
They twisted it.
to justify continuing the trials.
Oh, wow. So even when they tried to be reasonable,
It accidentally made things worse.
unintended consequences.
Yeah.
It's a theme we see throughout history, isn't it?
Yeah. But we know the trials did eventually end, so...
So what finally put a stop to all the madness? It's kind of wild to think about, right?
Yeah.
How something so subjective,
Uh-huh.
like spectral evidence, could actually, derail people's lives.
Yeah. So if it wasn't, ghosts and visions deciding people's fates,
Right.
what actually ended the Salem witch trials?
Well, I think the turning point really came when people started to doubt the validity of spectral evidence.
Okay.
As those accusations spread, and they started to target more prominent, more respected people in the community.
Yeah.
I think there was a realization, wait a minute,
Yeah.
this doesn't make sense.
So it wasn't just about, legal arguments or theological debates.
Right.
It was more like people finally saying,
Right.
okay, this is crazy.
It was a kind of common sense prevailing.
Yeah.
And as that doubt grew,
Uh-huh.
the convictions started to, decrease rapidly. The trials just lost their momentum.
So they kind of fizzled out.
They did, yeah. But of course, the damage was done. 19 innocent people were hanged.
Right.
Countless others were imprisoned, tormented.
Yeah.
And, imagine the impact on the community itself.
Totally.
Just shattered,
So, how do you come back from that?
Yeah, it's a big question, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the case of Salem,
Yeah.
it was a very long and painful process.
Yeah.
But there were attempts to try and make things right.
Okay, so what did they do?
Well, families of those who were wrongly convicted and executed, they received financial compensation.
Okay.
There were formal apologies issued. Even some of the judges who were involved in the trials,
Yeah.
they publicly expressed remorse.
So they were like, oh, we messed up.
Yeah, they acknowledged the injustice.
But can you really put a price tag on that, though?
Yeah, right.
Can any amount of money
No.
or apology really compensate for, losing innocent lives?
No, not at all. Some scars, they just run too deep.
Uh-huh.
But, there were other forms of reckoning that went beyond just the financial.
Okay, like what?
Well, for example, there was this effort to try to clear the names of those who had been wrongly accused and convicted.
Okay.
And in a lot of cases, the court actually formally reversed the attainders.
What?
The attainders. That's basically a legal pronouncement of guilt and punishment.
So they were basically saying, actually, these people weren't criminals.
Exactly. Like they were rewriting history in a way.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the legal system trying to set things right. Individuals stepped up, too.
Really?
They challenged those narratives, demanded the truth be told. One of the most prominent voices was this guy, Robert Califf.
Robert Califf.
Yeah. He was a merchant from Boston. He really meticulously documented the events of the trials, the aftermath.
So he was
Yeah.
a 17th century investigator.
Eagerly, he dug deep, exposed the truth behind all the hysteria.
And did people listen to him?
Well, he faced some backlash for sure.
Yeah, that.
His book was very controversial, especially because he, directly challenged powerful figures like Cotton Mather.
Right.
But his work did help to change public opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And it really contributed to this growing sense that the trials,
Yeah.
they were a miscarriage of justice.
So it sounds like Salem had a very long way to go to, like,
Oh, yeah,
redeem themselves.
for sure.
Did they ever officially clear the names of all the victims?
It's remarkable, actually. It took centuries. It wasn't until 2001 that the Massachusetts legislature passed an act.
2001, wow.
Yeah. And it officially cleared the names of all those who had been convicted during the Salem witch trials.
It's crazy to think.
It is.
How long it took to, like,
I know.
just
Get justice.
It's a reminder that history is never really settled, is it?
No.
We have this responsibility to revisit the past,
Yeah.
to challenge those narratives,
Uh-huh.
and to ensure that justice prevails no matter how much time has passed.
I totally agree. But, okay, we've talked about the social and legal context,
Right.
but what about the, like,
Yeah.
weird stuff that was happening?
The afflictions,
Yeah.
the fits, the visions,
Oh,
people
man.
claiming to be tormented by these spectral figures.
Right. Like, do historians have any idea
Yeah.
what was going on?
It's one of the biggest mysteries of the Salem witch trials, for sure.
Uh-huh.
They're all a lot of theories, and they all have their supporters and detractors. Okay, well, give me some of those theories.
One is ergot poisoning.
Ergot poisoning, what's that?
It's a fungal contamination that can affect rye grain.
Rye grain.
And if you eat bread made with contaminated rye, it can cause
Oh, no.
hallucinations, convulsions,
So they were like,
possibly,
tripping
potentially, yeah.
on bad bread.
It's possible.
Yeah.
The evidence isn't conclusive, but
Okay.
it's an interesting theory.
It is.
Another theory, which is maybe more widely accepted,
Yeah.
is mass hysteria.
Okay, break that down for me.
Okay, so imagine this. You've got a community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're already living in fear. They're anxious.
Mm.
Their religious beliefs are telling them that there's like a demonic threat everywhere.
Okay, yeah.
So in that kind of environment,
Yeah,
it's not hard to imagine how emotions could run high,
right.
how people could be very suggestible.
So, like, one person starts acting strange.
Exactly. Maybe they have a seizure or a really vivid dream, and they interpret it through the lens of witchcraft.
Okay.
And that interpretation, it spreads.
So it's contagious.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
And soon others start experiencing similar things.
Whether it's real or not.
Exactly.
So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely. And remember, there were real stressors at play, too. Conflicts with Native Americans, political instability,
Right.
disease, famine, all these things add to that sense of unease and vulnerability.
So they're looking for someone to blame.
Exactly. And those anxieties, those fears of the unknown,
Yeah.
they need an outlet.
And the witch trials become that outlet.
It's possible. I mean, it reminds us that the Salem witch trials weren't just about witches.
Right.
They were about a community struggling with very complex forces, internal, external.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think they succumb to those darker impulses of human nature.
That's deep. But does that mean
Mm.
that this could happen again?
Ooh, that's a big question.
I know. But are we, like, immune to that kind of mass hysteria?
Well, that's a question we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
It's kind of scary to think, right?
Yeah.
That the same things that caused the Salem witch trials,
Right.
the fear, the
Yeah.
scapegoating,
Uh-huh.
looking for easy answers to really complicated problems, like,
Yeah.
are those things still around today?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we might not be out there hunting witches, literally,
Right.
but those basic dynamics, they're still there under the surface.
So are you saying
Yeah.
that something like Salem could happen again?
Well, maybe not exactly like Salem,
All
but
right.
we still see mass hysteria, moral panics,
Yeah.
people demonizing others based on
Right.
fear, prejudice.
Misinformation.
Exactly.
So the Salem witch trials,
Yeah,
they're not just like a history lesson.
definitely not. They're a cautionary tale,
Mm-hmm.
a reminder
Mm.
that even in our modern world, we're not immune to this kind of
Darkness.
darkness. Yeah.
So what can we learn from all this?
I think one of the biggest takeaways is the importance of critical thinking
Okay. Critical thinking.
and due process, for sure.
Right. So,
We can't just blindly accept
uh-huh.
whatever we're told, right?
Right.
We have to be wary of those who try to manipulate us with fear,
Oh, yeah.
prejudice.
So basically,
Yeah,
don't believe everything you hear.
exactly.
Yeah.
Question everything.
Demand evidence.
Yes. And maybe most importantly,
What's that?
recognize that everyone
Yeah.
has inherent dignity.
Right.
worth, regardless of their beliefs,
Uh-huh.
background, social standing.
So Salem, it was really a failure of empathy.
It was. They couldn't see the humanity
Right.
in those who were different.
Yeah. Powerful stuff.
Yeah. It makes you think.
It does. Well, folks, that's our deep dive
On Salem,
into the Salem witch trials.
a dark chapter for sure.
Definitely. But I think we can learn a lot from it.
We can. And hopefully it inspires you to keep digging, keep questioning,
Uh-huh.
never stop learning.
Because the past, it can be a really powerful guide.
It can, if we let it.
So if you're interested in learning more about the Salem witch trials,
Or any other historical event.
we encourage you to
Dive in.
keep an open mind.
Stay curious.
And until next time.
Happy exploring.